we are going to be reviewing the Pythagorean theorem. So the first thing we start with is that the formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember that that squared just means the number times itself. So when we're talking about that, it's squared. The short sides form the right angle, which if we remember, that is our 90-degree angle, and that is shown with a box. So the short sides form the right angle, and we label the short sides A and B. Then the longest side is across from the right angle. We label the longest side the hypotenuse, and letter C. So the hypotenuse is always the longest side. It is always letter C, and it's across from the right angle. When you are solving for a missing side, you must determine what letter side you are solving for. So I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and pause it and go ahead on 1, 2, 3, and 4. Try and figure out which side you're solving for. So you don't need to solve it. You just need to go ahead and say what side you're solving for. So hopefully you paused it and you could figure that out. In this case, we are solving for a leg in number 1. So it would either be A or B. I like to solve for A when I'm solving for a leg. So in this case, we would be solving for A. I know that because it forms the right angle, and I know that 10 is the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. Here on number 2, across from the right angle, so that means that X is C. Across from the right angle, C. Next one forms a right angle, and this is the hypotenuse here, so this is A. Then number 4, it's across from the right angle, so it is C. So that's all we're focusing on this time, just reviewing what Pythagorean theorem is, and then determining what side we're solving for. Okay, then on the back side, we're gonna go ahead and do some practice. So we're gonna be solving for a missing side. The first thing we do is determine what side you are solving for. So if we're solving for a leg or a hypotenuse, if you are solving for the hypotenuse, you will square the legs and add them together, then take the square root. If you are solving for a leg, you will square the hypotenuse and subtract the leg squared, and then take the square root. And then we're gonna go ahead and do some practice problems. Go ahead and pause the video now. Try these practice problems on your own, and I will go through them. On here, it's across from the right angle, so I'm solving for C. So I'm going to square the legs, add them together, and then take the square root. So my legs, I can label them A and B. I can label those either one, that's fine. So 6 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. Now I know what those are because those are easy perfect squares. 36 plus 64 equals C squared. I get 100 equals C squared. My last step is to take the square root. So I get that C is 10 inches. Next one, I am solving it's across from the right angle, so that is C. So I'm going to add again. It doesn't matter which one I do is A and B. So I'm going to do 2.2 squared plus 4.1 squared equals C squared. I'm going to go ahead and type that in my calculator. So I'm going to do 4.1 squared plus 2.2 squared. And I get 21.65. My last step is to take the square root. So I take the square root of 21.65. Second, x squared 21.65. I get approximately 4.65. On your assignment, it's going to have you round to the nearest hundredth. That means just 2 numbers after the decimal. Again, 2 numbers after the decimal if it's asking for 100. This next one, this here is my C, so that means this has to be a leg. I'm gonna go ahead and make it A and make this B. So I'm gonna have A squared plus 3 squared equals 5 squared. I know what 3 squared is and what 5 squared is. Then I subtract. So I get A squared equals 16. Last step, take the square root of both. I get A equals 4. Okay, so those are the first 3. Go ahead and go through the next 3. This is across from the right angle, so this is C. I'm gonna make this A, this B. So I'm gonna have A squared plus 3.1 squared equals 5.5 squared. I'm going to subtract. So I'm gonna type in my calculator. 5.5 squared minus 3.1 squared. To make sure I'm subtracting the smaller number from the bigger number. So I get A squared is equal to 20.64. My last step is to take the square root on both sides. So I do second, x squared, 20.64. Get 4.54. Again, rounding to the nearest hundredth, so I want 2 after. Next one, I'm solving for C. So this is A and B. 7.9 squared plus 9.4 squared equals C squared. So I type in my calculator, 7.9 squared plus 9.4 squared. And then I'll take the square root of that. So I got 150.77 square root. I get approximately, this time it's gonna round up to 12.28, because the number next to it's bigger than 5. The last one here, this is my C because it's across, so this will be A. So I'm gonna have A squared plus 6.3 squared equals 10.5 squared. So I'm gonna subtract, so I do 10.5 squared minus 6.3 squared. So I get A squared equals 70.56. Last step, take the square root. I get 8.4. Okay, I will go back and show this whole thing so you can make sure you have that filled in. And then you should be good to do your practice.